You're very welcome on to the Matchbook Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined back again, Mark O'Hare, as always, but also Adrian Clarke. Adrian, are you refreshed, ready to go? Did you catch all the football? Did you catch it when you get home? What does Adrian do on holidays? The people want to know.
I don't think about football, that is for sure.
Good,
No, I kept up to date with the scores. I whizzed through on the weekend when I got back, and yeah, no, I'm excited. I've had a hard week of work, so I'm fully back into it now. But no, I properly switched off. But yeah, had a few couple of footballer spots on holiday. Saw Kieran Trippier at the water park. That was interesting. He's only out for a few weeks apparently,
Yeah.
but with a hammy. But yeah, he's always been sent away, so that was quite cool. I saw Philip Cocu at the pool bar, as you do. Yeah, obviously Dutch legend, former Derby manager. But yeah, no, it was a great break. Loved it. 35 degrees. It's not that here, is it?
Mark, have you ever spotted people, famous people on holidays? I mean, that's such a flex, I think, from Adrian. I mean, are they saying to Adrian, I saw Adrian Clarke
I just
over
thought you'd
my
be
holiday?
interested.
Yeah, it's good. Really good.
I'm very jealous. I'm very jealous. If I had seen Philip Cocu on holiday, I probably would have just followed him around for the rest of the holiday. That would have been my breakaway. So thankfully, I've not. But I did actually see David Beckham in Sainsbury's when he was about 22. He was just on the scene. I think he just started dating his Spice Girl, and
Yourself.
England were training up the road at Burnham Beaches, and I was in Sainsbury's with my mum, and David Beckham walked in with like a big wig from the FA. No one bothered him, but I got his autograph. But yeah, then he became the global superstar he was a year or two later. So, yeah, that's my sort of celeb spot.
That's pretty impressive, to be fair. And Adrian impressed as always. And we've already getting comments in, and we got a lot of tweets asking where Adrian was. But myself and Mark carried the show as well. Mark landing his best bet along with a couple of other winners in there. Before we get going, hit that like button, follow or subscribe completely, or wherever you're watching or listening, insights.matchbook.com for a full recap. All the bets we're covering will either be our exchange prices, which invariably will be the best price, or of course we'll be dipping in and out of the Bet Builder product, giving you the pros of the sports book as well. So do check out the Matchbook betting exchange. Really decent card in the Premier League. Manchester United, Chelsea, Newcastle, Arsenal, Southampton versus Everton, Spurs, Villa. The 4 games we picked out, could have gone with a couple of other ones there as well. But let's start with Manchester United versus Chelsea. This will incidentally be our £10 money back podcast Bet Builder special. More of that in a minute. Manchester United 266 favourites, Chelsea 2.7. The draw is available at 385. Both teams to score very short here, 146. Asian handicap line is effectively draw no bet. Manchester United marginal favourites at 197 and 3.5. A high total here. The under is available at 174. So I mean, Adrian, over to you. I mean, where do we start with Manchester United here? I mean, what were your thoughts on Eric Ten Hag? If you missed the game, like, they probably should have won that game, which means he'll still be in charge. I find that a bit crazy. But look, he's been sacked now, and the new manager's looking like he'll be appointed. Whether it'll be in place for Sunday remains to be seen.
No, it doesn't sound like it, does it? I think it sounds like Ruben Amorim will come in after the international break, which gives Ruud van Nistelrooy a little bit of fun, a little bit of time to enjoy himself. He certainly got off to a good start, didn't he, in that 5-2 win against Leicester in the Carabao Cup. I know it was a weakened Leicester, and he went very strong, didn't he? But it was an uplifting performance. Manchester United should have sacked Ten Hag last summer. I think most people probably think that now. I was staggered, absolutely staggered that they extended his contract. Just wasn't working, and yeah, he had plenty of time to put his own imprint on the team, and he wasn't able to do it, unfortunately. The players let him down to a degree as well. Some of the finishing this season has been awful, and that's not Eric Ten Hag's fault. But yeah, over the long piece, even though he won a couple of trophies, I think it's the right call. And look, only time will tell if Amorim is the right guy to come in. But yeah, it makes for an interesting game, doesn't it? I mean, you're thinking with United under Ruud van Nistelrooy, kind of nothing to lose. A little bit of a limbo period where they can cut loose, really, and maybe enjoy their football again. That's my head's telling me that's how Manchester might go about things. It looked like that in midweek, and they are a team that should have scored a lot more goals than they have, according to the XG. It's a big old disparity. Maybe they're ready to sort of reel that back in a little bit, but I do think this would be a hard game for them against Chelsea. who put out their B team at Newcastle in the cup. So I wouldn't read too much into that. If anything, it makes me a little bit more pro Chelsea because they rested 11 players. So whereas Manchester United definitely didn't. So Chelsea should be, theoretically in better physical shape for this one. But yeah, two teams you can't trust at the back, but two teams that have a lot of talent clearly going forward. I think from a tactical point of view, I'm really interested to see if Cole Palmer plays on the left again, like he did last weekend against Newcastle. I think that the manager, Maresca, trial ran something because Jadon Sancho obviously can't play against United. He's on loan. So he picked Neto and he thought, I'm going to have a look at Palmer with Neto out on that left with Reece James propping up from left back. And it worked really, really well. Obviously, you saw the goal that Palmer helped create and then he went on to score one. So I think that could cause Manchester United problems in the game. Chelsea have a terrible record at Old Trafford, 11 years since they won there. So it's hard to be on their side. So the first part of my bet is an obvious one, really. I think both teams to score feels like the right move here. Manchester United, do usually score on home turf, of course. They should play with a little bit more freedom now that Ten Hag's gone. And Chelsea are absolutely unreliable at the back. Gifted some goals to Newcastle in the week, didn't they? So I think United will score. I absolutely think Chelsea will score. And the other part of my bet is actually I think Chelsea can score 2 goals here. So both teams are scoring over 1.5 Chelsea goals at 2.1 is my selection here. They're a team that obviously they went to Wolves and scored 6, didn't they? Manchester United conceded 3 at home to Liverpool, 3 at home to Spurs. So whenever decent attacking teams have gone to Old Trafford this season, they have wilted. And I look at the Chelsea attack and I really like what I see with Jackson, Palmer, Neto last weekend was excellent. Madueke is an exciting talent. And Chelsea are more than capable, I think, home or away, of scoring multiple goals. They've done it a lot of times this season already. So yeah, I think it'll be a good game. But that ultimately that Chelsea might just outscore United, or we'll see maybe an entertaining draw. So it's a heavily drawn fixture this. So yeah, over 1.5 Chelsea goals, and both teams to score for me.
Okay, it comes out at 2.1. Interesting play from Adrian. Mark, Adrian set that up well. Firstly, obviously Manchester United with Ruud van Nistelrooy, a bit of, the shackles are off. They could really go for this, but also on that Chelsea tactical approach. I mean, very interesting if the Cole Palmer Neto, I guess Reece James combination was all to do with maybe a view to having those 3 starting in the same positions at Old Trafford.
I'm glad Adrian went first because he's obviously been doing a study the last week since his holiday.
That was very good.
That was very good. An outstanding preview on this game, better than I can go close to, because I found this desperately difficult to decipher based on the events that have happened this week. Because I had a degree of sympathy for Den Haag getting sacked, especially after that match on Sunday, because they were so dominant in that first half at West Ham. Didn't get what they warranted out of that match. I know they wilted a bit in the second half, but as you say at the start there, if they picked up a positive result there, perhaps he's still in situ, and this game becomes a bit more of an easy read for me. But without him, with Van Nistelrooy in charge and Amorim sort of lingering in the background now, I do expect a response from United, whether it's that sort of carefree, shackles off type, or whether they will be a bit more restrained. I think it will definitely be the former rather than the latter. So it's got the makings of being quite a decent game. But in terms of a betting opinion, mine is pretty weak because there's so many variables, so many question marks surrounding both of these two teams. I guess we'll have an opportunity to see what the reaction is on Sunday. So for me, it's a bit of a watching brief. Keep your powder dry coming into this match, because whilst there was a glimmer of a response there in midweek from United, it's the Carabao Cup, Leicester making wholesale changes and focusing on Premier League survival. So you can't read a huge amount into that. So United still have a lot of injuries, a lot of issues to address. You do expect a bit of a bounce to take place here, but Chelsea, as Adrian's already summarised, are so difficult to second guess at times, because of the age profile of that squad, there is inconsistency across the board in both boxes. And I think I read a stat this week that Chelsea are the first Premier League side in history to field a team under the age of 27 or 28 in every game this season, which is a remarkable statistic. And we saw a sense of that sort of immaturity and inconsistency in their performance last week at Newcastle, where they could easily have won that game 4-0 or even drawn it 2-2, such as the sort of fragility at times of them defensively, but also the brilliance of them going forwards. And I've been with Chelsea the last 2 weeks, away at Liverpool and then at home to Newcastle. I've been pretty pleased with my positions, but I just feel like this is an opportunity to actually take a sit on the fence and sort of just see how it unfolds. So for the purposes of that, and just to put up a play officially, I'm going to put up the draw on both teams to score. I agree with Adrian. I do think both sides have the capacity to easily get on the score sheet here, but I couldn't trust either side at the prices, all the lines, and just want to see how it plays out and take a view from there going forward. But I think that plays around 4.3 or 4.5. It's just a chunky price to cheer on when you're backing both teams to score by including the draw. So no major opinion, unfortunately.
Yeah, you've hit on something, because this fixture, Man United versus Chelsea, is the most drawn fixture in Premier League history. 26 of 64 meetings have ended level pegging. So could be onto something.
Brilliant. That's a start now and a half. Let's lock in the draw. Both teams to score, yes, for our £10 money back bet builder, just because it's the game of the week there. So that's risk free. Get your money back as a free bet. If you bet this with the matchbook bet builder and your bet loses, you'll have a free bet in there up to £10 on Monday morning. And if you do want to throw in over 1.5 Chelsea goals, effectively saying 2-2 or above, you're getting a 7.0 shot there too. Let's go to the early kickoff. Newcastle versus Arsenal. Take a look at the betting that we have on matchbook.com. Big game for both sides for different reasons. Newcastle 4.0, Arsenal just above even money 2.04. The draw is available at 3.8. Both teams to score, yes, 178. Favorite in that market. Newcastle get a half goal head start on the Asian handicap line, and the total for this currently sits at 2.5. So Mark, you can go first on this game. I mean, this is a type of fixture, like, for example, Arsenal lost last year. Are you expecting a similar setup where they'll make it themselves hard to beat, depending on if injuries? Obviously, Saka was back over the weekend and came on in midweek as well.
Yeah, so I've, full disclosure, I put in Newcastle plus half a goal when you put the bet sheet across on Tuesday or Wednesday. That was my original selection here, but based on team news over the last sort of 24, 48 hours, I've since changed my pick. But I definitely do think it's still a difficult game for Arsenal. It wasn't long ago we previewed Man City's trip to Newcastle for an early Saturday kickoff. I was with City, Adrian was with Newcastle, and Newcastle deserved their point that day. They were brilliant. It was their best performance of the season up to that particular point. And I do think they've continued to play it at a decent level since then, actually, even if results haven't followed. It's been a strange sort of season where they've started the season pretty poorly from a data perspective and the eye test, but have managed to pick up some points. And then the last sort of 4 or 5 games, they've actually played pretty well, but not picked up the results they perhaps deserved. And that was absolutely in evidence last weekend when they lost at home to Brighton, despite absolutely dominating that game. Beggars belief how they managed to not pick up something from it. But I thought Anthony Gordon might be missing. He was back in midweek, which is a big plus, and as was their performance, admittedly against an all-changed Chelsea side, but they did play with real gusto against the Blues in midweek to qualify for the quarterfinals. Goal scoring has been an issue, but Isak got on the score sheet in midweek. That will give him a big boost. Just 3 goals in the last 5 Premier League games. That could be an issue against an Arsenal side who are renowned for their defensive structure. But ultimately, this is a Newcastle side who have lost just 6 home games in the last 42 Premier League matches, going back to the start of 22-23. Arsenal did have won there in that sample. They've also lost, as you say, referencing that sort of feisty, controversial fixture from last season. But I guess sort of 48 hours ago, there was a potential for Arsenal to be without Timber, without Gabriel as well. I know they get Saliba back, but Timber played a part in midweek, which is a big plus with Calafiori missing. So suddenly that back four doesn't look quite as weak as it perhaps could have been. I still have a question mark over the central defence because Saliba and Gabriel have partnered together, I think, in 42 of the last 46 Premier League games. So, even if just one of them is away, you do expect standards to drop ever so slightly. So perhaps they're not as impenetrable as perhaps they have been in previous games. But I also looked at their away schedule, and results-wise, it's been very promising for the most part. City, Spurs, Villa, Bournemouth. But they've not actually won the expected goals battle in any of those fixtures. So I saw they were 275 to win away at Newcastle last November. To see them around evens, I was happy to pass them up, actually, without knowing the full extent of the team news. So instead, I'm going to reference that last meeting at St. James's Park yet again, because there was fireworks It was feisty. It was brilliant for the neutrals, perhaps not for you two. But yeah, I'm going to back over 49.5 booking points. Both Newcastle and Arsenal have been booked at least twice in 8 of their opening 9 games. In 5 of those 9 games, both sides have collected at least 3 cards. And John Brooks is refereeing here. He's averaging around 47 booking points since the start of last season. And if you look at the Premier League so far this season, 63% of matches have featured 5 cards or more. The league average is 549. That's a huge, huge leap on previous Premier League averages. And if you look at the 2 teams together, just one of their combined fixtures have featured 5 goals or more. So you can combine under 4.5 goals alongside over 49.5 booking points. It's tight, scrappy, feisty, card-heavy game. And then hopefully I don't really have to bother about who wins, draws or loses, because it's going to be a low-scoring game. I can't see it opening up and escalating to a shootout. So that's my play, and it comes in at 188.
And Mark, very quickly on those booking points going up in the Premier League, I can't find a reason myself. For example, I watched the Villa Bournemouth game. Every single yellow card was fully deserved. It's not like the referee went out and made it all about him. Is there any reason you can put your finger on at all?
They have been hotter on certain things. I mean, we're talking about Arsenal here, aren't we? So there's been certain instances where balls have been kicked away. The referees are quite hot on that. There's been a few directives at the start of the season where referees were told to clamp down on. It normally sort of starts to waver after sort of match day 4 or 5, but they've been quite stringent on those rules this season. But as you say as well, some of the Premier League matches I've been watching are turning into sort of La Liga from 10 years ago, where there's challenges flying in everywhere. The pace of the game obviously can play a part here too. But for me as a neutral, not having a sort of a team to support in the Premier League, it's great fun. I'm loving it, to be honest. There's goals, action cards. It's everything you want to see in football. So yeah, long may it continue.
Adrian, from the Arsenal point of view, I mean, it's a big game, just given the context that obviously Chelsea away next week before the international break. It's been a tough run of fixtures, and you probably should be targeting maybe 4 points from those 2 games.
Yeah, for sure. I was into Milan as well in the midweek, sandwiched between. So it's a really, really tough week for Arsenal, and they kind of need to set the tone for that week with a win first up. It makes the other 2 games easier, doesn't it? If Arsenal get themselves a big win at St James's, and they're definitely good enough. I mean, we've gone there before and won, although we have lost in 2 of the last 3 visits. Famous games, of course. One where it was on the documentary. You remember seeing that one. It was an awful performance. And then last year, very, very controversial goal that won it for Newcastle. So it's going to be hard. No doubt about that. It's going to be hard. But I don't think Newcastle are defending anywhere near as well as they have done in recent seasons under Howe. I don't think the structure of the team is as good. And I don't think the personnel of the back 4 is as good either. Livramento and Hall at fullback, I think, are underdogs against Saka and Martinelli. I thought Fabian Schär had a bit of a stinker last weekend alongside Dan Burn. They couldn't handle Jackson and Palmer, and they got caught out of position on a number of occasions. And I do think that the Arsenal's front line is in quite a good nick at the moment, with Havertz, Trossard, Saka and Martinelli all playing very well. So Arsenal will go there to win. They'll go there to control the game. Lots of possession, I would imagine. They've just got to watch that they don't get caught on the counter, which is obviously where Newcastle are so strong. But they're winless in 5, aren't they, in the Prem, Newcastle? And so that might affect them, especially if Arsenal get off to a good start here. It's going to be interesting. I agree with Mark completely on the type of game. It's not going to be high scoring. I cannot see it. Cannot see it being goal heavy here. So I'm going to go with under 3.5 goals. And I'd like to pair it with Arsenal double chance. So I don't think Arsenal get beat here. Okay, they could, because Newcastle are a decent team, especially at home. But I've got a lot of faith in this Arsenal group. The defenders are getting back fit, and I expect the defence to be stronger this week than it was against Liverpool. Rice and Marino, nice and sturdy in the midfield, and then you got the front 4 that I talked about. I think they're more than good enough to come away with a point at worst here. You get a lot of score lines on board with this. Obviously you got the 0-0, you've got the 1-1, you got the 1-0, the 2-0, the 3-0, and of course the 2-1 as well. So there's plenty of score lines, in Arsenal's favour here, or the draw. 8 of Newcastle's 9 games have gone under 3.5 this year. and 3 of Arsenal's 4 away games have gone under 3.5 as well. The only exception was actually that last kick of the match, 2-2 draw at Manchester City, which really should have been under 3.5 as well. So yeah, I think it'll be a tight game, but Arsenal are capable of edging it. If not, they take the point and move on. So yeah, for me, Arsenal double chance and under 3.5 goals, it's 1.86.
Okay, we'll lock that in as the podcast selection. Mark's bet is under 4.5 goals, combined with over 49.5 booking points, 10 points for a yellow card. Let's move on to Mark's choice of game here. Southampton versus Everton. Southampton 274, Everton 278. The draw is available at 355. Both teams to score yes is 169. The Asian handicap line is draw no bet, with Southampton marginal favourites at 198 versus 2.0 for Everton. 2.5 to total here. The overs at 186. For listeners, Mark had the last choice of games. I put it at 101. It would be Liverpool-Brighton. Loves talking about Liverpool's Anfield record. Loves talking about Brighton goals. But you went for Southampton versus Everton. So this should be a confident selection.
I'm just bored about talking about Liverpool, to be honest. I think we've talked about them almost every week this season. So felt like a bit of variety was required. And this is a big game. Well, it's an enormous game for Southampton and Russell Martin, actually. And he's promised to stick to his guns with the style and approach, and he's remained pretty true to his word. It's not been as successful as he would have hoped, but perhaps a match against Everton at home gives them an opportunity to put their best game plan in place and get a good result. Saints want to play out from the back and dominate the ball. They've come unstuck against the high press in the Premier League since promotion. They've also been dismal at defending set pieces too, but they're facing an Everton side that will probably allow Southampton possession that Martin wants and let them play out from the back. So perhaps it might be more in keeping with their style, actually, and they'll be buoyed a little bit by that narrow defeat at Man City. They'll consider it a step in the right direction, even though the scoreline wasn't reflective on City's dominance that day. But this is a Southampton team that are giving up over 2 expected goals, conceded 18 shots or more on 6 occasions already. They've allowed 33 big chances and failed to beat either of Ipswich or Leicester at St Mary's this season. So I'm not having them as favourites at home to Everton, despite those supposed moves in the right direction last week. I still think they're a weak Premier League team, and I think Everton have the substance to get something out of this game, whether it's all 3 points or just 1. They were outplayed for most of the match against Fulham last week. It was very similar against Newcastle at Goodison previous to that, but they've escaped both of those matches with a point. They're now unbeaten in 5. They had 8 shots on target when winning at Ipswich in their last away day, picked up a point at Leicester already. And even before that 5-game unbeaten streak, there was hope in some of those performances. They went 2-0 up at Villa, 2-0 up at home to Bournemouth, somehow contrived to lose both of those games despite playing very well for large parts. So it's a sort of trend I've picked up on at the back end of last season, which I wanted to sort of highlight again, really. But so far this season, Everton have lost once in 6 against teams in 10th and below. That means that go back to the start of last season, they've only lost 6 of 26 against teams in 10th and below. They've also returned 9 wins, 3 draws and 3 defeats when facing bottom 6 teams since the start of last season. So this is where Everton do their best work. It's against the lesser lights, which is not too surprising, but I was surprised at how good they are at avoiding defeat in these matches that matter. So I did flirt pretty audaciously with Everton draw no bet, Everton 0.0 evens. I think it's a tremendous angle to take, but I wanted to guarantee profit should Everton share the spoils with Southampton here. So my way in is to back Everton double chance on the bet builder alongside under 69.5 booking points, which gives us a 1.8 shot, which I think is very palatable. And the reason for the booking points is I mentioned last week, I talked up Andrew Madley as the lowest card referee in the Premier League. So I was absolutely astonished to see there was 13 cards in that Villa Bournemouth game we covered. But Madley was injured and therefore didn't referee the game in the end. It was Chris Kavanagh.
Yeah.
So I was incredibly embarrassed by talking up undercards and there being 13. But yeah, Madley. I
can confirm. Yeah, I can confirm it was Chris Kavanagh who was repping. Yeah, I watched it.
Yeah, so those numbers stand strong, which I mentioned last week. 26 of his last 28 league matches have featured under 69.5 booking points. And Everton matches so far this season have been dreadful from a cards perspective. 7 of their 9 games have featured under 3.5 cards, and we're looking for under 6.5 here. So it just
Not
feels
dreadful,
like a nice
Mark.
play.
It's that's good, right? It's good to have less yellows, right?
Not for
No,
Mark.
no, not for me. It's all about the cards. So, yeah, it's kind of combining a low card referee with a low card team. Admittedly, it's a 6-pointer, but yeah, Everton on side anyhow.
Yeah, Adrian, we spoke with this on last week's pod that it's flipped now. I think us as fans and bettors now want more cards rather than less cards. So it's just flipped completely the referee. So that's just the way it's gone. Quickly on these two teams, Adrian. Firstly, Everton. They're quite poor at home to Fulham. Didn't create much. Got lucky, I thought, to get the equaliser. To be honest, not saying Fulham battered them, but definitely deserved it. Southampton. A lot of talk on Twitter about their second half performance in the EFL Cup. I think they had something like 85 to 90% possession, one shot on target, which was the equaliser, or with the winner. Sorry, with 2 minutes to go. Was that the way Russell Martin always played in the Championship, just non-stop possession, or has he lost a bit of that creativity from the Championship?
Yeah, no, he's very possession heavy in the Championship. Yeah, it was all about keeping the ball, playing through the thirds. They were brilliant at it. They were good to watch in the Championship because they're playing against poorer opposition. They were able to slice through and create lots of chances. No, they were entertaining actually in the second tier. It's just that they're up against the best team, some of the best teams in the world, and there's just levels in football, and Southampton are finding it hard to compete on that stage. So yeah, there's no shame in that. It's going to be a long season for them, no doubt about it. I mean, I agree with pretty much everything Mark said. I think that Everton's record against teams around the bottom end of the table is unbelievable. I'm glad that I had a slightly different stat to Mark. He went bottom 10 and bottom 6. If you just restrict it to the bottom 5, of which Southampton are very much in the bottom 5 since the start of last season, it's won 9, drawn 2, lost 1. You know, it's a frighteningly good record. It's the kind of record you'd expect from a team inside the top 4. So this is the kind of fixture that suits them. They have a pretty bad record actually against Southampton historically away from home. And this unbeaten record of theirs, 5 unbeaten, well, they don't often get to 6. They did it under Frank Lampard, but that was obviously 2 or 3 years, a couple of years ago now. So that worries me a little bit. But yeah, my pick here is what Mark was going to do, and that's Everton draw no bet at even money. But I like his angle because by going double chance with the booking points, then the draw doesn't just give you your money back. It turns you into a winner. So I'm inclined to just advise you to go Mark's way here and go with that. I think they've played well, Everton, in the last 3 away games. They were poor against Fulham. It wasn't good at all. But in the last 3 away games, since they got battered at Tottenham, they've actually played pretty well, Everton, on the road. They're also a really good set-piece team. Everton, they've scored 4 goals from corners and free kicks this year. Southampton are pretty much the worst team in the division at defending them. They've let in 7 already. There's a real fragility there. And I do think that in a tightish game, it might be a corner or a wide free kick that makes the difference for the Toffees. So, yeah, I think they can go there and come away with at least a draw here, Everton. It's a match that Southampton have to win. If they want to have any chance of staying up or at least making a fight of it, they have to win this game. And they're capable of it. But I just feel that Everton, especially in light of the way they went to Portman Road and won quite professionally, I think they can do something similar here at Southampton. So yeah, Everton draw no bet is my selection, but go with Marks.
Yeah, that's it. Adrian back, 10 out of 10 analysis on the first game, telling me what bet to pick on the third game. So well and truly back. Everton double chance and under 69.5 booking points. The podcast selection 1.8 and Adrian draw no bet on Everton. This arguably could be game of the weekend. Spurs versus Aston Villa. It is a quality Super Sunday if you want like entertaining games. Spurs 197 favourites at home to Aston Villa, who are 385. The draw is available at 4.2. Both teams to score yes, 1.5. So market expecting goals. Asian handicap line sees Villa get half a goal head start, just above even money. The total here is 3.5. Under is available at 177. Adrian, this is just got all the hallmarks of a really good game. But what way are you siding on in terms of Spurs against Villa? Villa go away here, seem a big price.
Too big is my honest assessment of it. I was staggered actually at the difference in the prices for the home win and the away win, because Villa are an exceptionally good away side. They've got a brilliant record on the road and in London. They love it, absolutely love it. We've won 9 of their last 13 away games in the capital. So I mean, obviously, that shouldn't be a thing. That shouldn't influence the way you think. But it's a road trip that they're pretty good at. They've won the last 2 times at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. It seems like they're quite a good matchup for Tottenham in this sort of high line derby. Mickey van der Ven's injury, I'd be lying if I said this hasn't swayed my thinking. I just think Tottenham are nowhere near as well. They're not sturdy anyway, really, but they're nowhere near as sturdy without Van der Ven. I think his speed is on the recovery is so important to them. Dragusin's a good player, but he's not the same as Van der Ven. So that pushes me a little bit towards Aston Villa. I was looking at goals here, which is the obvious angle, but the prices aren't great on goals because I think everyone expects plenty of them here. I just look at the 2 teams and where they are. And actually, over the course of this season, I tipped Spurs to finish above Villa, and that might still be the case. But from what I've seen so far, actually, I would say that Villa are slightly ahead of Tottenham in terms of where they're at, and I think they're a little bit more reliable. Obviously, they're 7 unbeaten now, and I just look at them, and I think they're a really solid team. Their performances in Europe have been so impressive. The only caveat with Villa is that they've only faced one team in the top 9 this season, and that was against Arsenal, and they got beat. They played well, and they could have got something out of the game, but they did lose the game. Everyone else they've played has been at 10th or lower as they stand now. So they've had quite a gentle start to the season. So this will be a real test for Aston Villa, but I think they can come away with it with at least a point. I mean, draws don't really happen. Spurs haven't had a home draw since 2 seasons ago. But I'm going to go with Villa plus half a goal. So that in that way, we get the draw on side. And we also get the Aston Villa win. That comes in at 1.95. I just think they're 2 very exciting teams, very even teams. But I look at the key areas of the pitch. I look at the keepers. I'd pick Martinez over Vicario every day of the week. I look in central midfield. I'd have Tielemans over any of the Spurs guys. And, up front, I would have Watkins or Duran ahead of Solanke, even though I like Solanke. I just think those key positions, Villa are actually a little bit stronger. So, for me, Villa plus half a goal.
Okay, 2.02 current price of Villa plus half a goal. Mark, isn't it great to hear Aston Villa being spoken about in a positive light on this podcast? We should do it more often, I think.
Yeah, we got a bit of grief last week from Aston Villa fans. I'm not really sure why, because we didn't exactly speak down on them. I mean, both teams had sort of contrasting fortunes in the cup in midweek. But last weekend, I think I spoke about fatigue last week with Aston Villa. I think for the most part, they were very good against Bournemouth. Mark Travers kept Bournemouth in the game, but they did fade late on. There's no sort of denial to that. Emery said it wasn't a result based on their European exploits, but their performance backed that up for the most part. But they absolutely did fade late on, and lost control and made some pretty poor decisions. And they've now dropped points in 4 league matches this season. In 3 of those, they played after they played in midweek. And you look at Spurs as well; they were pretty laboured and pretty limp in that defeat against Crystal Palace last weekend after a European outing on Thursday. So, both teams didn't perform anywhere close to their best for 90 minutes last week after being involved in Europe, and obviously both involved in cup action on Wednesday night. So I just wonder whether there is an element of load and fatigue, whether it's physical or mental, starting to catch up on these 2 teams, considering their hectic schedules. So I've decided to leave the match outcome alone and focus elsewhere, although I do back up Adrian. If there is a bet to be had in those major markets, I would support Aston Villa with a half-goal start. I think the prices should be closer to an each of 2. Well, I say an each of 2, as if this game was played on neutral territory in each of 2. But, I have Spurs closer to about 2.2 to 2.3 and Villa probably 3.3 3.3-ish, 3.4 perhaps. So there is definitely room or wriggle room there. Villa have a full squad available to them yet again. Kamara is back, Mings is back, both played a midweek and made impacts as well. So there's positives there for them. But I'm going back to a similar sort of bet to what I've suggested in the past, really, which is this is the kind of game which gets me excited because, you know, there's so much to look forward to in this game. I think there will be goals. I think there'll be cards, and corners tend to follow Spurs around as well. So just putting the three together in a combination bet and getting a nice price to cheer on, something which is quite fun for a neutral. 1.88 for over 2.5 goals, over 39.5 booking points, and over 7.5 corners. And that all feels pretty plausible when you consider 83% of Spurs games at home in the Premier League under Postecoglou have gone over 2.5 goals. 70% of Villa's away games since the start of last season have gone over 2.5 goals. They've scored in 18 of 23 away. Spurs have scored in 21 of 23 at home. This season, they've managed just 3 clean sheets between them. So I fully expect both sides to contribute to a goal-heavy game. Corners-wise, 16 of their 18 combined games have featured at least 8 corners. 7 of Spurs' 9 matches have featured at least 13 corners. They've won 8 on their own in 6 of those 9. They have been the corner kings this season. And then Craig Pawson is refereeing. He gave 8 cards in the East Midlands derby last week. He's now given at least 4 in 9 of his last 13 league games. And the Premier League has seen 4 cards or more in 80% of matches, including 15 of 18 games involving these two teams. So it's just a nice way, I think, from a neutral perspective to cheer on goals, cards, corners, all the action, really, because it should be good fun. It should be entertaining. And I think it will be the best game of the weekend in the Premier League.
Okay. Pro goals, pro corners, pro cards from Mark. We will lock in Villa, though. Double chance. That's half a goal in the Asian handicap line. Really good price. 1.95. So pro Aston Villa this week, maybe not next week. That's how the betting world works, unfortunately. The 4 bets we put up, draw on both teams to score £10 money back, podcast bet builder special, incidentally. On Arsenal double chance and under 3.5 goals, a selection where Adrian, Newcastle versus Arsenal, Everton double chance and under 65.5 booking points at 1.8 in Villa, plus half a goal, Asian handicap line, insights.matchbook.com. Full recap of those bets and also the bets about to be put up here. And Adrian, you've 2 selections in the EFL, big prices. So you're coming back here really, really aggressive. I love it.
Yeah. It's boring just picking sort of really small priced selections all the time, isn't it? Let's go for a few sort of semi-long shots. This one really stood out to me at Mark's beloved Loftus Road. QPR entertain Sunderland. I think it's 23rd, plays first. And you can back Sunderland actually on the nose to win at 2.12, which I think is a very generous price given the form. You know, Queen's Park Rangers have not been good on their own patch. They've been beaten several times in front of their own supporters this season. And Sunderland have been the best team in the division. Absolutely outstanding. Some of the football that they've played has been lovely to watch. Crisp passing between the lines, little triangles. They've got some fantastic young players. Sunderland under Regis Lebris, Chris Rigg, Joe Bellingham, Dan Neil. That's a terrific midfield, and it's a midfield that I think will dominate against QPR. So I'm going to back Sunderland, but I'm going to inflate it by going Sunderland and both teams to score, which comes in at a juicy 4.75, which surprises me really. Because they're favourites to win the game, and both teams to score has landed in every QPR home game this season. They haven't won any of them, but it's landed. Both teams to score on home turf in West London over the course of the season, home and away. 75% of QPR's matches have seen both teams score goals, which is the most of any championship teams. Sunderland are flying. They've scored in every away game so far, and Sunderland have scored 9 goals in 4 away games against struggling sides. So that's over two goals that they've scored on average against teams in and around where QPR are. So yeah, it's a nice price. This Sunderland and both teams to score.
Okay, and second selection here, Preston versus Bristol City. You obviously saw Preston up close there last night against the Arsenal. Has that swayed you at all, or was this picked out pre that game?
No, I did pick it out afterwards, but it was more to do with the fixture than what I saw. I mean, it's difficult, up against Arsenal. Arsenal played superbly in the game, and
they did.
It was an outstanding performance from the Gunners, and Preston didn't really stand a chance. No, this is based on form and results. Really, it's Preston against Bristol City. Probably, I don't know if Mark would agree. Are these the two biggest clubs never to have played in the Premier League? I think these are the two biggest that have missed out on the old top flight gravy train. Do you know what I mean? They've been knocking on the door. They've got that ambition.
Yeah, Preston had the 2 or 3 years, didn't they, when they did everything bar get to win the playoffs. Like, they kept losing in the playoff semi-final. I used to always watch them make a mess of it on Sky.
Yeah. Bristol
City, Preston with their history and heritage, especially, for sure.
Unbeaten.
Bristol
City, perhaps not, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a big club though. You go down there, it's a big stadium, well supported club. And I think their ambition, or the ownership's ambition, has always been to get to the Premier League, and it just hasn't happened for either club. And they're very mid-table Championship, unfortunately, both these. I'm back in the draw here at 3.35 historically, and I know that that doesn't make a great deal of difference to a lot of people, but historically, the draw wins the head-to-head, which I don't think happens that often in head-to-heads between two clubs. The draw is the most common result. 3 of the last 6 meetings between these two have ended level. And this season, 12 draws between them in 24 combined matches. And of late, it's basically been a string of draws. 5 in the last 6 for Bristol City and 5 in the last 8 for North End. So I'm just going to go with the numbers here and say this feels like it's going to end 1-1 or 0-0 or 2-2. I think it feels like it's got draw written all over it.
Okay, let's lock them in. Sunderland, both teams to score yes, in and around 5.0, 4.75 at the moment. The draw for Preston versus Bristol City. 2 selections for you, Mark, across Europe, starting with Bundesliga. Now, over 2.5 goals in both teams to score. You would have, I think, maybe a couple of years ago, been putting that up religiously in the Bundesliga. How's it been getting on this year?
Yeah, pretty well, depending on the teams you approach, and certainly has been when Wolfsburg are playing, and certainly when Augsburg have been playing as well. So they face off against each other on Saturday, and I'm going to back it here at 10-11. Wolfsburg did play at a 0-0 with St. Pauli last weekend, but I don't expect a repeat because St. Pauli are pretty turgid in their approach, and they do like to draw you into a sort of low stakes game, whereas Wolfsburg, under Ralph Hasenhüttl, have promised plenty this season. They too play an attacking, attractive style, but unfortunately for them, they've not been getting the results they think they deserve, because they've won just twice in the Bundesliga this season, despite only 4 sides of scoring more goals than them in the league so far this season. They've scored twice or more in 6 of 8 games already this season. That includes matches against Bayern, Leverkusen, and Stuttgart. So they can mix it with the best in the final third, but defensively they've been a bit of a rabble at times. Multiple goals conceded on 5 occasions, including all 4 of their home games at the Volkswagen Arena. The last home game was a 4-2 defeat to Werder Bremen, which was pretty poor, in fact, and it's kind of piled the pressure on Hasenhüttl now. Wolfsburg down in the bottom 8, and they should be sort of trending towards the top 6, top 8, really, considering the budget they have at their disposal. They should be targeting this game. Augsburg did beat Dortmund last week at home 2-1. They've now picked up all 13 of their points at home this season. Just 3 away games, but 3 defeats, conceding 11 goals in the process. But I do think they're more than capable of causing problems here to Wolfsburg as well. They should be able to contribute to the score sheet. And just look at the numbers really this season. We've got overs landed in 14 of their combined 16 games, over 3.5 goals in 11 of 16, and BTTS in 12 of 16. So this particular selection, over 2.5 goals and both teams to score, has won in 12 of their combined 16 games, 75% success rate, and we're getting 10-11. I think that's a really nice price to cheer on in the Bundesliga on Saturday.
Okay, and second selection here. A lot of people would have been looking up the Portuguese league table and seeing Sporting Lisbon out in front for obvious reasons here. Benfica trying to keep tabs of them, and you expect them to get the job done with both teams to score now this weekend.
Yeah, I think this is a really nice price. Benfica have really, really improved since Bruno Lage has taken charge. 10 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat across their 12 games across all competitions under his tutorship. The loss came against Feyenoord in the Champions League, but they've also stuffed Atletico Madrid 4-0 in that competition. They also won away at Red Star Belgrade, which kind of shows they're capable of travelling and getting results on the road. They are 8 points off Sporting domestically, but they have got a game in hand. And I guess with Ruben Amorim leaving, they'll feel there is a chance to overhaul them across the campaign from here. So this weekend they travel to rock bottom Firenze. The home side have picked up just 4 points from 9 games so far this season, 7 defeats in 9. They've only scored 3 goals in those 9 games. That's nearly 14 hours of football, scoring just 3 times. They've already faced Sporting, Braga and Porto, the 3 best teams outside of Benfica. They've lost all of them. They've conceded about 12 goals, I think it is. Conceded 54 shots in the box across those 3 games. Their average possession was 32%, 28% and 28%. They're not offering a huge amount at all in those fixtures, and I think this will be quite one-sided as well. Benfica are giving up just 0.56 expected goals per game and 2.88 shots in the box per game. So you look at Benfica to win, it's trading around 1.25 away from home at the rock bottom Firenze. Just to include both teams to score no, it boosts right up to 2.1. It's an enormous boost. And when you consider both teams to score no has been a winner in 13 of their combined 18 league games, to then just include the Benfica away win, which is 1.25, you're getting 2.1. It's a massive, massive leap. So quite happy to have that on side at odds against.
Okay, Benfica, both teams to score now 2.15 and over 2.5 goals, and both teams to score, yes, in Wolfsburg versus Augsburg. Let's move on to long shots time. Adrian, you're back with a bang here. A championship team, Coventry City, travelling to the Riverside Stadium at 5.1.
Yeah, people will look at this and say, what? Coventry is struggling big time. Borough, a very good side this season. Got a good chance of being in the playoffs, but I just feel that you can't really trust Middlesbrough. You look at their season as a whole so far, performance levels have been high, but the consistency has been woeful. You win one, draw one, lose one, draw one, win one, lose one. They can't get any kind of run going, and that makes them easy to oppose in matches like this. I just looked at the price of Coventry, who, for my money, have a squad that's almost the equal of Borough. They should really be up around the playoffs themselves, Coventry. They've priced up at 5.1 here, and they've won on their last 2 visits. They're unbeaten in 6 against Middlesbrough. I've been to a couple of the games between these 2 sides, and Coventry have always played very well in it. And they were excellent in the 3-2 win against Luton. High pressure game last weekend, and even though they made heavy weather of it, because I think they were 2-0 down, they deserved to win the game. Like they were bossing it before they were trailing. So I think Cov might be heading in the right direction. I think that was a big win for them and a big performance. And it wouldn't be the shock of the century in my eyes if they went to the Riverside and beat them. It's more than something they're more than capable of. I say that because they've got goal scorers. You've got Haji Wright, you've got Ellis Sims, you've got a number of other guys that can chip in. Sakamoto's a good player. There are a number of them. But defensively, they're very rarely all over the place. I think they had a no-show at Leeds, which was very unlike them, 3-0. But in most away games, they can limit the opposition to 1 goal. That's happened in 5 of their last 6 away games. They've let in 1 goal. And if they let in 1 goal at the Riverside, they're capable of still winning the game because they've got good forwards. They're relatively solid. And if Middlesbrough, who haven't been great in front of their own fans, they lost at home to Bristol City the other week. They've drawn at home to Pompey. They've drawn at home to Preston. I honestly believe Coventry are better than those 3 teams. So this isn't an outrageous pick. 5.1 is a good price on Coventry at Middlesbrough.
Seems quite big on the face of 5.1 Coventry away to Middlesbrough. And you've also got a selection in the championship mark as well. Similar price in here, but teams that are right beside each other in the table.
Yeah, I'm just opposing the market view that Swansea deserve to be favourites away at Oxford, and also opposing the view that both teams to score no is the outsider of the 2 in that market. I actually think that's a worthy shout. Actually, BTTS no is trading around 194 in this game between Oxford and Swansea. Expecting it to be tight, but just taking a stance against the market. Swansea have been priced up as faves. Oxford trading around 2-1 to win at home. Yes, they are winless in 7 now, but 5 of those have been drawn. They're unbeaten at the Kassam since promotion, 3 wins and 3 draws. Some really eye-catching results against some big teams. at the Kassam as well. And if Oxford are winless in 7, well, Swansea are winless in 6 themselves, and they're really struggling up top, actually. They failed to score in their last 5 games, and their away record has been pretty miserable. 4 defeats in 6, and they failed to score on 5 occasions. Actually, if you go back to the start of last season, they've lost 45% of their away games. So they're not good travellers, and they're not in the sort of form you expect from a side to be favourites away from home in an early kickoff. Looks a tricky one for me from a Swansea perspective. Therefore, I want Oxford on side. And yeah, I'm not expecting this to escalate at all. 8 of Swansea's 12 matches have featured a maximum of 1 goal. Dreadfully dull stuff. And 2 of Oxford's 3 home wins have arrived via the 1-0 or 2-0 correct score. So you can back a repeat, which is Oxford to win and under 2.5 goals at 5.5. You're basically cheering on the 1-0 or 2-0. I just think they're overpriced at 2-1. I also think BTDS No is overpriced. And this is a nice way of getting something on side of it's occurred in 2 of their 3 home wins already this season. So yeah, quite happy to be with the U's on Saturday.
Okay, that's Oxford and under 2.5 goals, effectively 1-0, 2-0. We've got 4 big prices in the championship, and yeah, don't be surprised if that makes a matchbook multiple or 2, life-changing matchbook multiple or 2. But great stuff from the guys and well thought out cases. Let's move on to best podcast bets. Adrian, West Ham United stunk out the place in that first half at home to Manchester United. Forest have been going quite well, but it is a Nuno team, and I think ultimately that's probably why you're leaning towards the under here.
Yeah, definitely. I'd fancy a low-scoring win for Forest, if I'm honest. But my pick here is Forest, West Ham to go under 2.5 goals. It's odds against 2.06. It feels like a tight, cagey game to me. And West Ham are giving up a lot of chances. We saw that against Manchester United, but and that what happened there might just sort of be a wake-up call for them to just try and solidify a little bit. I just think here, stylistically, you've got 2 teams that don't really want the ball, and sometimes that can turn into a bit of a stalemate. Neither team knows really what to do with it. You know, if they've got so much of it. Forest are absolutely a counter-attacking team, and West Ham are very low possession as well under Lopetegui. They've been really disappointing, haven't they, West Ham? It's not many endearing features for this Lopetegui team as yet, and I just think that they're struggling to create the chances that they should create, particularly away from home. West Ham have been, obviously they got battered at Tottenham, but since then they've been involved in low-scoring away games at Brentford, at Fulham, and at Palace. All of those went under 2.5. Involving West Ham. And for Forest, 7 of their 9 matches this season have seen less than 3 goals. So unders has landed consistently. It's landed in every single home game at the City Ground so far. And 2 of those games featured, under 1.5 would have landed as well. So yeah, they've got a great defensive unit now, Nottingham Forest. A bit too reliant on Chris Wood. He's got 7 of their 11 goals. They need a bit more from elsewhere. So yeah, I just feel that this has the look of a very cagey game where 1 goal might win it. I'd expect that to be Forest, but I'm not going to back that. I'm just going to go for the under 2.5 at 2.06.
Yeah, just picture neither team wanting the ball and leaving it on the halfway line, and both teams happy to sit on. But it's a good point on that stylistically. You do see it a lot, Adrian, to be fair. Under 2.5 goals, 2.06. Mark, best bet, we're going back to over 2.5 goals. And both teams to score in the Bundesliga. I mean, you look at Bayern Munich, I think 29 league goals, but second and third on that list in the Bundesliga are these 2 teams.
Yeah, Leverkusen versus Stuttgart. If Adrian's picked out a stinker for Saturday, I've got a worldie on a Friday. This should be a absolute belter in the Bundesliga. These are the 2 teams who finished in the top 2 last season, both struggling to hit the same heights as last season, but still doing a decent job in the final third, and both are just tremendous fun and entertainment. And when they do meet, they tend to be plenty of fireworks. They played 4 times since the start of last season across the Cup, Super Cup, and the Bundesliga. 1-1, 3-2, 2-2, and 2-2. The Super Cup game this season, the curtain raiser, was absolutely outstanding fun. Loads of goals, loads of action, loads of cards, loads of controversy. Expecting something similar here. And look, a couple of weeks back, I put over 3.5 goals up in a Leverkusen game. I got gubbed by the 2-1. I'm not going to let the same thing happen again this time. So over 2.5 goals in BTTS. It has been clipped in a bit too much since we've gone live. So it was around 170. To get it to 175, just include over 5.5 corners. So that's over 2.5 goals, both teams to score, and over 5.5 corners, and you'll get about 175 on this play. Just can't explain how confident I am in goals in this game. Put it that way. Look, the 13 of their combined 16 games have seen the goals element of this selection pay. 15 of those 16 saw BTTS. 14 of those 16 saw overs. 12 of those 16 went over 3.5 goals. If you look purely at the Bundesliga, Leverkusen have scored at least twice in 7 of 8. They've also conceded twice or more in 5 of 8. Stuttgart have scored twice or more in 5 of 8 and conceded twice or more in 4 of 8. And again, considering these two teams were the top two last season, we're now 8 rounds into the new campaign and neither have managed to keep a clean sheet yet this season. So it should be tremendous fun. Just feels like a nice, savvy way of getting goals on side in a match where the goal expectancy is around about 3.5. So yeah, the data in our favour here is pretty strong. So goals all the way at Leverkusen on Friday night.
Goals all the way. That's over 2.5 goals. Both teams to score, but also bring in over 5.5 corners on the match with Bet Builder. You will get 175. And we have a lot of people watching the live stream, a lot of people watching back on YouTube as well. If you take 2 seconds, all we ask, hit that thumbs up if you're enjoying the content. Will be much appreciated. Insights.matchbook.com, full recap of all the guys' picks. We'll be back next week to preview another weekend Premier League. But until then, enjoy the weekend's football, and we'll chat to you next week. Bye-bye.